What's more frustrating than dying over and over and over again in Elden Ring? Stick drift. Stick drift is more frustrating, because when that boss fight is tough as it is, the last thing you need is a thumbstick that veers to the left like it's been hitting the boss hole all night. If you don't know what stick drift is, we've covered it at length in our previous videos, link in the description below. But the gist of it is that the major manufacturers, Sony, Microsoft and Nintendo, use potentiometer-based thumbsticks in their controllers that wear out over time. For the better part of a decade and throughout an entire global pandemic, we basically didn't have a solution to this problem, and controllers were being thrown away just after a few months of use. But over the last couple of years, we've seen a few third-party replacements that use a different drift-proof sensor called a Hall effect sensor, and they hold promise for ending stick drift once and for all. Hall effect sensors use tiny magnets to detect joystick movement in a way that doesn't wear the part out, at least nowhere near as much as the standard potentiometer sticks do. But the big three controller manufacturers are still refusing to use the tech in their thumbsticks, though oddly enough they're happy to use the Hall sensors for the triggers. Until the big three decide to adopt the tech, we're going to be dealing with drift. So today I am going to show you the latest development in drift-proof technology: tunneling magnetoresistance sticks, or TMR sticks for short. Just like Hall effect sticks, TMR sticks work by using magnets to manipulate the electrical current running through the PCB. But unlike Hall effect sticks, which use a sensor that detects variations in the surrounding electromagnetic fields, TMR sticks work by using magnets to manipulate the resistance in an intermediary resistive film that, get this, allows electrons spinning in a specific orientation relative to the magnets to flow through the resistive layer. Now, things don't normally flow through other things, even at the atomic level. This is the kind of that happens in quantum physics. This Nobel Prize winning principle was discovered by Albert Fert and Peter Grunberg in 1988, and my inner nerd is deeply satisfied that my controller now runs on quantum principles. And just to prove there's no trickery going on here, here's the rest of the stick. It's bog standard, the same design you'd find in any drift-prone, failure-laden potentiometer stick. All the drift-proof tech is inside those two outer sleeves. These buttons and plastic components will eventually degrade due to mechanical wear, but that should be years and years down the road. Unless of course you rage like our video editor does, in which case, yeah, you might need to replace that controller a little bit sooner. Let's show you how to replace your failure-prone sticks with these new TMR sticks from Gulikit. You can find the replacement sticks for your controller in the link in the description. I'm demonstrating on an Xbox Model 1914 controller, and if you prefer written instructions for the disassembly, you can find those on our website. First off, we'll need to peel away the two side covers that are clipped in pretty securely. For all of you wanting to know what this blue stick is used for, this is it. It's called a plastic opening tool, and I also didn't know what it was called till we did this video. These covers can be tough to remove. My advice here would be to pry up, because that's the direction the cover wants to move in. Then use picks as you go around to prevent the clips from reseating. Oh, and don't be afraid to apply a little pressure here. These clips are tough. We'll also want to peel away the sticker inside the battery housing. There's a sneaky screw hidden away under there. I don't like hidden screws, they're not repair friendly, but there's an even bigger upset yet to come. 5 screws are holding the back cover together on this controller, and all 5 are security Torx. Standard Torx heads won't work in these. You'd need the type of security bit that you'd find in our toolkits to open this controller up. Not a good look, Microsoft. Once I take the front faceplate off, I can remove the thumb grips, and turning the controller back over lets me remove the back plate too. There are a couple of screws holding this PCB in place, and before I start to deal with those 8 wires, I'll unplug the 2 coax cables while I'm here. There are 8 wires to desolder before we can access the thumbsticks themselves. Stick with me, this looks much scarier than it is, but I promise you can easily do this at home too with the right tools. Of course, I'm using my favorite soldering setup, the FixHub portable soldering station. You can find a link to our smart iron in the description below. Obviously, you don't have to use our iron for this repair, just make sure the iron you do use can handle the job. Ours is a 100-watt iron that is capable of dealing with larger globs of solder, like the ones we're going to tackle on the thumbsticks. Now for those wires, just remember the order. Starting from the top of the controller, it's grey, black, red, black on each side. At times like this, I like to take a quick photo before I start. This board is plugged into the board beneath it. Just give it a gentle tug and it'll pop out. And then let's prepare our workspace by placing the board in a vise. These thumbsticks have 14 solder points and we need to tackle all of them. Basically, we have to melt each solder joint and soak up the solder into the copper braid, called a solder wick. To help remove the solder, I'm going to apply flux across all the contacts to help the solder travel into the copper braid a little more easily. This is what you want to see when you do this for yourself. When I apply the heat to the copper braid, it absorbs some of the melting flux, which deoxidizes the copper and paves the way for the solder from the contact to travel up onto the braid. Note that I'm using a thin strip of copper braid here, cut off the roll. Thanks to Justin Ashford for teaching me this trick. It ensures that you're not diverting heat away from the joint to heat up an entire roll of copper. Now this isn't a 5-minute job. I have to keep applying flux as the old stuff burns off, and it takes a few strips of copper to get all of that solder off. This repair requires a little patience and the ability to methodically work the problem. It's not hard, in fact I think it's fun, but do plan to give it a good 20 minutes of your attention. Don't worry about those brown looking globs, they're just burned flux. While it is possible to damage a PCB by overheating it, this is not what's happening here. Safety is a priority when working with solder and flux. The solder inside these electronics are lead-free, so it's safe to handle. The flux, on the other hand, is potentially hazardous and should not be breathed in. Use a fume extractor to deal with the unwanted fumes. There are plenty of options to buy these online, but you can easily make one yourself using a cardboard box, a battery, and a PC fan. We have a guide detailing the steps to make one, link in the description. If you've removed all the solder on those 14 contacts, you should be able to gently slide the thumbstick away. You can wiggle it side to side a little bit, just be careful not to apply any pressure if it feels stuck, or you'll rip traces from the board. Speaking of those traces, we want to clean the burned flux from the board before going further. Flux is usually corrosive over time, so you want to clean it off. The no clean variety activates when heat is applied to it, which makes it non-corrosive. But there's always the chance that some of that flux didn't get activated, so it's always best to clean it away. Besides, you don't want the sticky mess inside your controller catching hairs and Cheeto crumbs. Your options for cleaning here are isopropyl alcohol or a flux cleaner, combined with cotton buds or a soft bristle anti-static brush. These should all be commonly available items, but you can find most of these supplies and other soldering gear in the iFixit store. I'm going to grab my replacement Gulikit TMR stick and line it up with the Xbox controller board, and it should fit like a glove. With the stick in place, I'm going to apply some flux to the contacts I want to solder, and I'm going to secure 2 anchor points to ensure the stick doesn't move while I solder the other 12 points. After getting yelled at by some rando in the comments for our PS5 video, I'm going to take their rather loud advice and apply my anchors to the stick housing instead of the sensors. Thanks for the tip, random angry YouTube commenter, it's fun to learn together. I'm using our lead-free solder for this job, and thankfully it's much easier than the process of desoldering. This part is a 5-minute job. For those new to soldering, note how the solder isn't applied to the soldering iron tip. We want to hit the pin and the pad that we're soldering to. Once those two get hot enough, the solder will melt against the pin and the pad without ever touching the soldering iron tip. That's how a good solder joint is made. Mine obviously needs more practice, but as tests will prove later, it'll do for now. Here's another pointer. After you solder a joint, remove the solder wire and allow the iron a second or two to ensure both solder and joint are heated enough to bond. Then remove the iron. And one last time, you'll want to clean any remaining flux from the board if you don't want to explain to your friends why your controller is sticky. Let's pop that board back in, being careful to maneuver around the coax cables and pop it back in place. Speaking of these coax cables, make sure you don't mix them up. Incorrectly attaching them won't kill your controller, but it does prevent it from working. I want to secure the board with the 2 screws before applying some flux and soldering these 8 wires back to their respective pads. Remember, from top to bottom, it was grey, black, red, black. And repeat. Tuck those wires in and replace the back cover, followed by the thumb grips and the front cover. Replace those security torque screws and pop those side covers back on. The hard part is over, we're almost there. Now, it's calibration time. For the Xbox controllers, you'll want to download and run the Xbox Accessories app, and make sure you're signed into the Xbox app too, or this may not run correctly. Select the thumbstick you replaced and follow the steps to calibrate. And hey presto, you're done. You now have a drift-proof Xbox controller thanks to the might as well be magic of quantum physics.